It's almost a little bit comical when we hear this very first reading. Here comes the man of God, and he's in a foreign country. He's not in the Jewish area of faith. She was a pagan and didn't really know much about Judaism or anything. And here he comes and says, "Okay, can you get me a little bit of water, and then some cake too?" And then she, "Well, okay, I was just going to go in and have the very last bit of food and water, but since you are a prophet of God," she recognized that. He said, "Okay, I'll do that. I will give that water and that the cake of bread, so they could have something." And he said, "That's really interesting. Why would God do that? Why didn't just put all that water and things like that?" But God is so wonderful, and God gives us so many signs. And here's one of these signs. He says, these people, the woman and the son are going to die, because we were just running out of food, and they couldn't go down to. They didn't have food banks and things like that, and so she knew what was happening, but she gave because the man of God came by. She was generous. She didn't just hold on to what she had and her son, but something was bigger than that, so much bigger than that. And her heart was so much bigger. She recognized the presence of a man of God. And so she had this generosity. And what a beautiful gift that is, to have and to be generous. Now, a lot of times, people don't go into etymology and, where do these words come from? But she was great and had great generosity. Generosity comes from a word meaning of noble birth. The generous are people of a noble birth. We sometimes forget that. We think that to some extent that, well, if generosity means you give money. Well, it's not always that simple. That's part of it. It's also giving our time and our those kinds of things, but especially with this idea of giving some kind of material gift, and to have that. Now, we always say, "Well, I kind of hard to give them," and we make all kinds of excuses. And it's scary to say, I really want to be a generous person. It's scary because we know exactly what that means. So often, well, I want to keep my money, but I'll help set up chairs at church. Well, that's nice, but that's not really. You have to be generous all across the board, not just here or not just there. And here is an example of somebody, not even of the faith, who acts with generosity, with a great magnanimity. So often, those are things that we don't think about. We don't think about, I need to talk about being magnanimous, be generous, and starting that and making it a way of life. That's what Jesus did. And he saw these people giving the big sums of money. Okay, that's nice. But that didn't impress Jesus at all. What impressed Jesus was this poor woman who just gave a few pennies. That's what she had to live on. But she said, God comes first. How do we, so we have to keep looking at that. And this is a great example of, am I being a woman or man who is really striving for that kind of generosity? You see, I'm going to give more. How many times have we gone to the store and bought way too much? And we know it, and we know we did that. With the coming up holidays, how much we just buy and buy and buy for ourselves. Really, who really needs 80 inch screen in the living room? Who really needs something like that? So we get tied up with that. And we don't take the time to say, wait, am I being generous? Do I practice generosity? It's not easy. And, it's hard for us human beings. The most selfish human being on the face of the earth is a newborn baby. They want what they want, when they want it, and you better get it or they're going to cry until you get it. They could care less. Honey, be quiet. The Pope's in the living room. But it happens. And we have to learn how to be generous. It's not easy. We want what we want. And we want it now in the way I want it. So we have to be thinking about that. But in some ways, we tend to be very childish with our financial part of our lives. Oh, I'm not rich. I this and on like this, and putting things down until I want something, and then I go get it. So we have to keep working on that. And we can start in our own families. Maybe there's got a couple of cookies on the table. Instead of grabbing, make sure I get the last one, just leave it there. Let somebody else have it. We can do that. That's not a big thing, but it's part of the training. I don't have to have what I want right away. When I was growing up, if we had a piece of pie left over, and my brother Frank wanted some, and I wanted some, and so my dad, wonderful man that he is, God rest his soul, he would say, Frank, you cut, Billy, you choose. You'd be surprised how long it took my brother to get that thing just cut right. And when I was the cutter, same thing. By the way, that's a good thing to, if there's one thing there, split it up, one cut, the other choose. It works. It works. How many times, I've said many, many times, but do you have a budget? You actually write down a budget. People don't really understand how much money they actually do have, because they don't live with it. They don't have a budget. They just kind of spend when they want to spend. So we can change with that. We have to have that generosity, to have a great sense of magnanimity, that we can do better than we're doing. That's what happened with the two women in the readings today. And of course, Jesus was there as well. And he's the most magnanimous that's ever walked in the face of the earth, the most generous. So maybe we can take some time today and this week and think about, am I really hoarding things? I keep getting more and more. And all kinds of things like this. We don't really need all that we have. We have so much. And I always like to, at Christmas time, and these kids have all these presents that get opened up. And by the end of the day, they're playing with the boxes, not what was in them. Ever watch that? See that happen? Let us kind of pray about generosity, magnanimity, especially in our financial lives, because that's where we can get really messed up. And thinking, gosh, I gave a lot of money, God's going to be really thankful for that. And you give something to God, he obviously, he will receive that. But sometimes I think God cries a little bit that we could do something so much more, and so much more good could happen. Just this week, start thinking about that. Am I truly a generous man, a generous woman? And do I really strive for magnanimity? That can make a huge difference in our world. But we have to want to do that. We have to say, yes, Lord, I know, I am your son, your daughter. Help me always to be generous.